Our last speaker is Ed Hammond, and so we'll go a little bit beyond the hour, so Ed has a full 15 minutes. Ed's previously of the Sunshine Project and currently self-described, as we'll hear.
Put it way down here and hope that it doesn't go crazy on me. All right, to change gears a little bit, let me just explain a little bit who I am, since I don't come from the United States government or any other readily recognizable entity. My background is actually probably the prior panel in this room. I began my career working for what is now the ETC Group. Worked there for about 5 years, and then for the last 8 years I ran what was the Sunshine Project, which is an NGO that worked on biological weapons issues. And have since shut that project down. And in the two issues that I'm really going to talk about today, which are smallpox and bird flu, I work as a consultant to Third World Network, although I want to emphasize that what I say is my opinion. It's not an opinion of the organization. This is I've given before, and I'm going to call it the "Why Can't We All Get Along" talk about quote-unquote biosecurity. I'm using that term whenever possible. I don't think it's a very useful concept. And probably those of you that know me probably from the Sunshine Project, where I've probably been known as sort of a bane to the existence of biosafety officers in universities across the United States over the last few years for harassing them a lot about the joke that's really known, the bad joke that's called the Institutional Biosafety Committee System in the United States. And I've worked a lot on let's call it the classical biosecurity issues that the first 3 presentations were about, and really become rather disenchanted with the whole dialogue over biosecurity. I don't think that it's very useful, and I don't think that it's getting us very far. So I would classify myself right now really as more of a refugee from the biosecurity world than somebody that works on it. So I'm going to reserve the right to talk about some of the classic biosecurity issues if they come up in any of the questions and answers. But what I really want to talk about today are 2 real-world things that I am working on that are, in general terms, security-related, that are the subject of ongoing negotiations at the World Health Organization, and to which synthetic biology has a real-world, today application. It's happening. This is being discussed. This is not pie in the sky. This is not future possibilities. Those conversations have their place, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. And the 2 cases are what's going on right now in policy debates about variola or variola virus, smallpox, and about H5N1 bird flu. And I think that since we're in Hong Kong, I'm going to start with bird flu. Because, of course, it was here about 11 years ago that H5N1 emerged as a human pathogen. To try to keep this as sort of, this is an issue that you can spend 45 minutes talking about, but let me do it quickly. As everyone here probably knows, having access to the latest in mutations in a virus like H5N1 is something that's very important with respect to designing vaccines, at least vaccines as we know them today. And beginning about 2 years ago, Indonesia, which is not the only country, but Indonesia began to withhold sharing of H5N1 viruses. And the reason why Indonesia began withholding sharing of H5N1 viruses, along with other countries to a certain extent, was that the WHO operates a global system called the Global Influenza Surveillance Network, which is supposed to collect influenza viruses for the purposes of global public health and provide goods back to member states of the World Health Organization in the form of diagnostics, research advances, etc., with H5N1 virus. When Indonesia began to cease virus, and they've been lambasted in the media for it. But underlying their position is a legal reality, and that legal reality is that countries have sovereignty over the genetic resources which are found within their borders. And this is something which came up in the previous panel, the question of has the access and benefit sharing type discussion that you find in the conventional biological diversity sort of spilled over into issues of synthetic biology. And it has, and the place that it has is in this debate over influenza viruses. Because, and I'm not going to give you any profound conclusion about what should happen here. I do have my own opinion, but I want to describe the debate that's happening right now to you and what's going on. And that's that right now the World Health Organization has a group which is meeting periodically, and they're trying to break this logjam to enable free sharing of viruses. And really everyone in the end that I'm aware of is in favor of the sharing of these viruses. And the funny thing is that the negotiations are focusing very tightly on clinical samples, on viral isolates, and on physical materials that are the result of human infections with influenza, basically. But you know, there's an issue here that I think that hasn't really broken out into the open yet, but it will be, and that's that the HA gene of influenza is about 1,750 bases long. That's it. And that's the key gene, or one of the two real key genes for current vaccine approaches. The NA gene is about 750 bases long. Okay? And generally speaking, these viral sequences, when they are given to WHO, wind up in online public databases. Okay? And right now you have a group of developing countries which are squared off against, well, squared off might be a little bit of a strong word, which are in a debate with developed countries over how we're going to share the benefits that result from study of these viruses. And the thing is that people haven't fully realized it yet, but of course, synthetic biology has not the potential, or it has the potential, it can undermine this entire debate. Because obviously it is quite possible there are reverse genetic systems that work where you can go from the sequence which is held in these databases and to create a flu virus from downloading it online. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that you do an end around of, you potentially do an end around of the benefit sharing system that these WHO negotiations are about, right? So rather than accessing the material through the WHO system and signing a material transfer agreement that makes certain commitments with respect to intellectual property, certain commitments, with respect to what your company or your institution may do in the event that a commercial product results from the use of this virus, rather than accessing the material through that system, you might use the sequence. And this is an unresolved question. And I guess I said that I wasn't going to get profound, I wasn't going to tell you what I think. But I suppose that by bringing this up, what I'm suggesting to you is that that this is an issue that the synthetic biology community should consider, because it's not going to be the last time where you have, it's the first major instance that I'm aware of, but it's certainly not going to be the last, where through the use of synthetic technology, you can evade access and benefit sharing issues. And I would suggest that it is not going to go well if developing countries which are providing resources to the WHO system discover, as is probably happening, well actually we know that it's happening, that biotech companies, rather than going to Indonesia or to any other country that's a source of virus, are just going to the database and creating the virus through reverse genetics. So this is an issue that's going to have to be worked out, and I'm going to leave it at that. And good, I'm doing fairly well on time. So the next issue that I wanted to talk about is variola, or smallpox. And let me catch up with my notes here. I guess like older people are probably familiar with what it is. Younger people generally aren't. But just to review a little bit about what this is, smallpox was probably the single greatest infectious disease killer in the 20th century, and in recent human history, almost certainly. About 30% fatal, a really, truly awful disease that we haven't had to deal with. And in fact, most people who were born, it depends upon where you were born, but since the late 60s or the mid 70s haven't been vaccinated against it because the eradication campaign was successful. Smallpox was eradicated by the World Health Organization campaign, which was put forward and pushed through by developing countries. It was also funded by developing countries. No country paid for more than 10% of the cost of eradication of smallpox. And in fact, the WHO eradication campaign was conducted only after overcoming political opposition from the then superpowers. And as you probably know, but just to make sure, it was declared eradicated in 1980. The last human case was slightly before that. The last human case was not in Somalia. The last human case was in Birmingham, UK, due to a lab accident. And since then, really since the late 1970s, and in particular since the late 1980s, the World Health Organization has been trying to destroy the last remaining stocks of smallpox virus, which exist at Vector in Russia and at CDC in Atlanta. So what does this have to do with synthetic biology? Obviously, the science is reaching a point that it may soon be possible to synthesize smallpox virus. So what does this mean for the entire debate that's raged now for 30 years over destruction of the virus? My conclusion is probably not one that you're expecting. What's clear from what's happening at WHO is that at least in the short to medium term, and perhaps arguably in the long term, neither of the two countries which possess the remaining stocks of smallpox virus want to destroy the virus. And they're doing just about everything that they can to avoid exhausting the research agenda that was approved by the World Health Organization. And we have a series of things that are going to happen in the next few years with respect to smallpox in the WHO, concluding in 2010, 2011 with what they're calling a major review, which in other words will be a decision by the member states of the World Health Organization as to whether or not they will destroy this virus. And with all due respect to what was said in the prior presentation, I think that what is almost certainly going to happen, and I will eat my words at Synthetic Biology 6 if I'm wrong, but in the next couple of years, what you're going to start to hear is the U.S. government is going to say that because you can synthesize smallpox virus, and you get different answers right now as to whether that's possible. Some yes, some people say we can do it now. You talk to other people. Well, it's a little bit more complicated, maybe in a few years. But what you're going to hear in a couple of years is that the U.S. government is going to say, because you can synthesize smallpox virus now, the security benefit of destroying the stocks that remain in Atlanta and by implication in Russia is obviated. And so therefore, what we'll do is we'll retain the stocks. Now, if you approach the issue from my perspective, clearly the largest risk of a new smallpox outbreak in the world right now would be a leak from either CDC or Vector. The United States government has made repeated allegations that there are undeclared stocks. Saddam Hussein allegedly had undeclared stocks of smallpox virus. Well, we know that that wasn't true. But perhaps most importantly, the leaders of the WHO program from the beginning really acknowledged the possibility of undeclared stocks. The U.S. government likes to talk about those that are held for sort of devious purposes. There's also the possibility that they're in the bottom of a freezer somewhere, and I was talking to somebody here who found some in his own lab well after smallpox was declared eradicated. So I mean, that's a real possibility. But the important thing here is that the reason why most of the world, almost all of the world, with the exception of a few countries, has been pushing to eradicate these last remaining stocks of smallpox is to create a situation where any possessor of this virus would be essentially guilty of crimes against humanity. And the reason why I'm raising this here is that, but the possibility of undeclared stocks has been acknowledged from the beginning, right? The point of the point of destroying the remaining smallpox virus is to basically criminalize its possession, right? It's not to create a guarantee that there isn't somebody somewhere who might accidentally have it. So my point for synthetic biology, and to conclude on time, is that I believe that your science, within a couple of years, is going to be abused for this political end. They're going to say, you synthetic biologists can synthesize smallpox virus, so therefore we can't destroy these stocks, therefore we can't take this important step forward, what I believe is forward for international safety and, for lack of a better word, security. And I think that that's something that synthetic biologists should think about. Do you want to pander to the defense types and play up the evil potential and perhaps get some more DARPA funding? Or does synthetic biology want to sort of step out in front and try to play a constructive role here? And that's not something that's up to me. It's something that's more up to you. But